G'day, I'm Pete Techman Coleman here at Integrate 2024 in Sydney, and I'm joined by Phil Scobee, who is the Director of Product Management at HARMAN
for install
products. We're so glad you can join us here. We're actually on the MadisonAV stand, and we're got a brand new product, right? That's
brand new.
Yeah, that's just sort of come out, and a lot of people are probably familiar with the BSS name and maybe the London series and that kind of thing. But we have this Soundweb Omni. Can you tell us a bit more about it? What's unique about this new
what's
product?
unique? Oh, there's a lot that's unique, but yes, this is our latest generation. Yes. Soundweb London was our last generation. Yep. This is Soundweb Omni. Mm-hmm. It's based on similar principles of how we do our DSP. Okay. It is a Shark-based DSP, but it's now 100% backboned with an Audinate Dante network. Okay. So we for initial launch, we have 4 products today that we're announcing in Australia. Right. They're basically 2 types of products. They're processor-based, meaning networked audio only, no analog or AES, just networked. And we have 2 versions of that, a 512 and a 256. Yes. And the 512, they have the same feature set. Okay. Just think of it as big and small. Right. And everything that I say for the 512 is just in half for that. Got it. So it has onboard AEC, 160 channels. Yes. It has onboard VoIP, 64 channels. It has 512 channels of Dante both directions. Wow. Yep. It has 8 GPIO on it, and the GPIO is kind of unique. Yep. On each of those 8 pins, we give you the ability to determine in software whether it's an input or an output, and whether it's analog or dig. Really? So all user definable in software. Got it. Because normally on the back of a DSP, you've got analog, digital, you've got it, and it takes up a lot of space on the back of the back panel. And so I wanted to make it easier for you because you don't know sometimes until you get to the job of what you need. So we call it a configurable GPIO or flexible. And then some other unique features on it. We have a screen on it. I don't intend you to program by it. Sure. But a lot of times these end up in IF racks in the middle of the building. And I myself have been there and it's like, I forgot a laptop. Right. I can't tell anything. It's a black box. So we give you some basic information. First page is a status page. So and I want it to be visual. So you can tell just by looking at it what the temperature is and that there's something plugged into a power supply. So anything that's not plugged in is dark. So just relevant information that you might get. So it looks like, if we can just go back to that page there, is this suggesting you've got multiple power supplies? There is 2 power supplies. From a hardware point, everything is redundant. 2 power supplies, 2 network connections for all the Dante, and 2 control networks as well. So fully redundant. Fully redundant. You can set up twin switches for both audio path and control and let IT manage how that redundancy over. And then our software will give you the ability to do additional things like, so that's hardware redundancy. Yes. But really redundancy is also, how do you want to do it from software? Do you want it hot to where it's always live and it just switches over? Do you want it warm or do you want it cold, a spare in a closet? So through software, we'll allow you that option. Right? But the hardware itself is completely redundant. Right, and the dual power supply comes standard? Right. Both power supplies feed the motherboard at all times. It only needs one. Right. You can literally unplug back and forth and there's no change. It never reboots, it doesn't change, it just, whatever one's on, it uses. Perfect, that's great. And I noticed you've got, it's showing here, we've got the Dante connections here, so that would show if they were green, inactive. A pale green would show it's got a connector into it, and a full bright green would show there's connectivity and traffic. Right? Got it. Standard IT protocol for a network jack. So there's 6 ports on the 512 for obvious reasons, right? So primary, secondary for Dante is 0 to 256, then 257 through 512, and then 2 controls, 2 power supplies. And that's pretty much the connector point. We kept it very minimal because I'm also going for JITC security for government installations. So there's not a lot of inputs or outputs on it. It's all locked down. It does look, it's funny when I had a look at the back of this unit. It's very clean. You're kind of expecting to have all these typically, a DSP's got all these connector blocks on the back of it. And I looked back there and it was like, okay, there's a power cable and a network cable, and that was it. Other than the GPIO, and there is 2 BNCs. There's 3 clocking options. The internal clock, a really high precision clock, or Dante is your clock. And then externally, you can use the BNCs and clock it remotely by a Big Ben or something else. Right. One thing you mentioned before, you spoke about how many AEC channels that it has, it supports. One thing that I've always found frustrating is that
when we're dealing with, especially like some of these beamforming microphones, like for instance the Shure MXA 920, you can have up to 8 lobes per microphone. So suddenly, if you're turning around, you've got 4 of these microphones hooked up to a DSP, and you've got 8 channels per microphone.
You need a lot of AEC.
Suddenly, I've got 32 straight away without any wireless microphones, without anything else. And quite often with a lot of other manufacturers, I've blown through that channel count, the AEC channel count that's available for me. So the fact that, like, I just find it hard to understand that other manufacturers don't support more AEC, because this is reality. This is what we're dealing with out in the field.
That's one of the reasons we did that, and it is a DSP object, so you can drag it in and move it wherever you want in your design. And I will note that the 160 is at full bandwidth, and you could adjust the tail length down to smaller tail lengths and get a lot more.
Really?
Right?
Okay.
So that's just a minimum what you'll get at full bandwidth, which you may or may not need. You may have a telephone area where you don't need full bandwidth, or maybe it's voice only. So that's just a starting point.
Sure.
Depending on how you want to set the tail length on those, you could have more.
Yeah.
Because it is just an object.
Yeah. And so we got the DSP here, and then these are, I believe, these are expansion modules.
We call these processors.
Yes.
So the P, a fancy model name, 512P for power processing, and then these are E's for expanders.
Got it.
And what they essentially are is a converter, right? So it's an on and off point for any place you need audio to get into the system. So it takes analog and AES. You define how you want to use it, and that converts it to the Dante. So it's just a converter. They have 3 sections. An input, an output, and what we call a flexible or configurable. And so the big one is 8 by 8 by 8, and then the small is 4 by 4 by 4. Each of those inputs or outputs can be user defined again in software to be either analog or AES. And when you're in AES, we populate the full stereo pair. So that's why the channel count is 32 as opposed to 24. Because in AES mode, you could have a full bidirectional 16 and 16.
Got it. And where do you typically see these being deployed? Like I tend to work I'm on the consulting side of things, and we kind of work more in the corporate space. This is big channel count, right? Where are these typically deployed? What kind of environment?
Any large operation or installation, large stadium, large complex, any place you need lots amounts of DSP and large audio buses going back and forth. And the edge devices could live in an area where you need to take input in from a remote truck or do recording out. So you can also use these in a standalone configuration, because there are a full compliant, just a cable between the two, and you have a great digital Dante Snake. So now you have 32 channels of Dante Snake if you didn't need any processing. So they work independently or together in an equivalent.
And they're all communicating via Dante, right?
Well, the backbone for audio is Dante. But for communication, we use a thing called H control. Harman used to use, in our existing products, we have a thing called HiQNet, if you're familiar with that. This is the latest generation of that, H control. And it's a more open-ended API, more up-to-date, easier to program, works with third parties, a much easier language than our old.
So that allows you to talk between the different the boxes,
between them, us, any existing gear or anything else. And if you've already talked to Jeff earlier about AMX, built into this is a Muse, right? So we have a complete Muse 1000 inside. So you have the ability to do full onboard scripting and everything, and media converting back and forth.
So it's all built in. That's incredible. That's a really good idea, because we always, when we have DSP, we always need some form of control, right? So to have that built in is fantastic. And what about on the programming side? What software, what tools are used to sort of bring all this together?
We have a brand new set of operating systems for it. We traditionally we have what was called Audio Architect. This is the next generation of that. It's called AVX Architect, and it's infinitely scalable. Meaning, on the canvas or design file, you can have any number of these pieces you want.
There's no limitation.
There's no limitation. You can have 100 processors, 1,000 edge devices, whatever you need. One design file, infinite scalable.
Really.
And basically you're going to do two things. The first one is your heavy lifting. That's AVX Architect.
Okay.
That's where a designer, a programmer, somebody's going to do the lift. They're going to put into the design, they're going to program the DSP, then they're going to design their control interface, and they're going to use this second app called AVX Control.
Okay.
And this is a lightweight app that works on any software, iOS, Android, Mac, and Windows.
Yes.
Downloaded from the Google Play or the Apple Store, and then you'll push your design file, your control file to that device, and now you can control anything from
from anywhere.
From anywhere. So think of AVX Architect as the heavy lifting where you're going to do the work. This is more what the user will see.
Using more of a user interface kind of thing.
Yeah, two applications.
That's fantastic. And it works, like you said, it works on any operating system. It could be an iPad, it could be
an
PC.
Android, even native on a Varia panel. So AMX panels are native. They already have it.
Right, so you could actually put it on there. So you're not doubling up.
You're not doubling.
That's fantastic.
We're making both of those worlds come together. Audio and video for us, hence the name AVX.
Wow. No, that's really, really cool. What else? What haven't we spoken about? Is there anything that we haven't covered? Because I mean, this is a very, very, very powerful.
It's extremely powerful.
DSP
in scale, it's so much bigger than what we've done before. I would say the only thing we didn't mention is I don't want to leave out the fact that this is only the beginning of the whole product line. So we started with the big, and now we're going to scale it down. I'm going to make it all the way down into little 8-channel devices, right? So it'll be a complete product family. We just started with a big scale.
Right. But still the same kind of concepts.
Same
you just
technology.
Keep scaling it down. That's all it is.
For us, it was all about the DSP platform. We needed to build a DSP platform that we could use both in DSP, but also in mixers, also in amplifiers, and loudspeakers. So we launched a year or so ago SRX 900, a JBL line array. That DSP engine is a smaller version of this. So we already have this technology being used today. So it's not new. We've just been building it for different areas.
I just really love like how you guys are sharing or working together across all these multiple brands, whether that's JBL, whether it's AMX, whether it's BSS. You're not working in silos, right? You're all looking at each other and working with one another and integrating the technology and making sure that they can talk to one another. Like I just think that's amazing because we're so used to these silos being built across our industry.
It's really hard for us too. We're a collection of great brands that historically have a long history, and all of those had their own engineering and design teams. And we did a major thing a few years ago and restructured all that into design centers. So all of our acoustic element is done in Northridge, California. All things electronic are done in Dallas, Texas, where that is at. All things lighting are done in Aarhus over in Denmark. And then we have a technology center over in Japan. China that ties it all together, right? So by having those design locations, you have now one team not only working on a BSS, but also a Crown, an AMX. So all of it, that we're sharing technology, wealth, and common knowledge. It makes the best sense.
Total sense.
It took us a while to get there, and it's growing pains, but we're going to just continue to move forward and do good things.
No, and like you said, you have an amazing family of brands. Like these are iconic brands in the industry. All under one roof, all working together as one. It's a great story.
AVX, right? Audio, video, and everything else.
That's it. That's a great story. Phil, look, this is fantastic. I've certainly learned a lot about BSS today. And it's so great to have you in the country and representing BSS and telling everyone about it. Best place to go for more information?
Talk to MadisonAV.
MadisonAV,
They'll have all the information. We have some brochures. They're knowledgeable at how to help and do anything we can.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So MadisonAV.com.au, or if I'm sure you're at all the trade shows as well, right? You're at
I'm available as well. You can go to HARMANPro.com, find us. We'll reach out.
All right, Phil. Really appreciate your time. Make sure you check the new range of BSS DSPs out for yourself. They're absolutely incredible. Head to MadisonAV.com.au for more information.